On today's episode of Let's Talk F1, I am going to be doing the painful task of looking back at my F1 2018 predictions. All this and more next. So welcome back to Let's Talk F1, your weekly Formula 1 podcast here on the F1/E Reviews channel. If you're new around here, we do all sorts of Formula 1 and Formula E goodness, so if you haven't subscribed and if you would like to, feel free to do so. Today, as I mentioned in the build-up, we're going to be looking back at my god-awful F1 2018 predictions, and of course, I need to get some disclaimers out of the way pretty early doors to explain some of these opinions. Now, first of all, I was very new to YouTube at the time. I think I'd only done a handful of videos when I did these predictions, and so my sort of awareness of the YouTube culture wasn't quite there, and so some of these predictions are definitely a little bit rogue, a little bit out there, but I'm sure if you've been watching this channel for a little bit of time, you will know I don't mind just a cheeky little out there prediction. But I think the big disclaimer that I have to say is that these predictions that I did all the way back in maybe January, I think it was, hence January being a key word there, before any sort of testing, before we even saw what the cars were going to look like in 2018, I made my predictions. So all of these predictions were completely, well, guesses really. I had no evidence to go off of, except rumours on how cars were maybe going to perform, teams depending on how early they put development into their cars, and really they were just, I don't want to call them educated guesses, because looking at it now, they don't look very educated, but at the time, I was trying to look at past events and really try and make a most educated guess as possible. But today I'm first going to be going through the Constructors' Championship, so I did predictions for Constructors, and then I broke down all 20 drivers, and that's how we did it. And at the time I said, well, you know, I won't say if any drivers are going to swap. It's almost a guarantee that someone's going to swap at some point. But no, they didn't. So this is going to be very easy to do and say that none of the drivers that, well, left F1. No one left F1 at all and no one came in. So that was pretty happy to see and pretty straightforward for me. But let's just crack on with it then, because we've got a lot to go through. Like I say, I'm going to start off with Constructors, then I'm going to go in a little bit deeper, look at where I placed each driver in the championship, and to be quite honest with you, some of the drivers' positions are more representative of where I put the team in the Constructors, so some mistakes, if you want to call them that, in the predictions are almost bled on from the Constructors' Championship. So let's start off then with the 2018 Constructors' Championship. Let's stop fanning about now, let's just crack on with it. Now you can start to see who I put in 10th, and I think a lot of people put them in 10th. Toro Rosso, obviously going into the season with a Honda engine. McLaren have had an awful few years with that Honda engine, and I thought, well, there's no way if McLaren are going to struggle with the Honda engine, surely Toro Rosso will. I was wrong, obviously. Like most of these predictions, I was very wrong. Toro Rosso did much better with that Honda engine and were nowhere near 10th in the end. Haas I put in 9th. Now that was a crazy prediction, but again at the time I thought, well, there's no way that the likes of McLaren are going to go backwards again this year. Williams will stay strong. Force India will stay up there. I even thought Alfa Romeo Sauber, that you can see I put in 8th. Yeah, I thought they would do better. So Haas were a real crazy shout in the end, putting them in 9th. Force India 7th, well, that's actually where they ended up. Sauber 8th as well. Got those two bang on in the Constructors. But of course, Force India wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for that craziness in the mid-season. Williams 6th. Now, when I said earlier that Toro Rosso, I got them way off 10th, I know they finished 9th, but Williams was so far behind Toro Rosso, you might as well have said there was a massive gap. So Williams 6th, made sense that they weren't going to go that far back from the past few years they've had in the hybrid era, but no, a shocking year from Williams, and they were the team that when you go through the rest of my predictions really glare out as big mistakes. Renault 5th, again just one place off, not an awful shout, but then you go into the two shouts that were pretty miles off. Ferrari, my thinking behind Ferrari in 4th was that every year in the hybrid era they'd have a great year, and the next year have a pretty dodgy year. 2014, no wins. 15, they get those wins with Sebastian Vettel. 2016, they drop off once again, no wins. 2017, yes, they look on the ball once again. And I thought, well, it follows the pattern that 2018, they're off the ball again. But no, they knocked it up a gear and almost fought for the World Championship, so they were wrong. McLaren. I really believe the stories that they had the best chassis and thought with a half-decent engine, they could pile on the pressure. Mercedes, I knew they'd be up there with Red Bull. Well, I knew they'd be at the front at least, but I thought Red Bull this year would just have the edge. And after winter testing, looked like I was right. It really did. And after the first few races of the year, Red Bull, I thought, well, if they can have a little bit more of an upgrade on that engine, they could be right there with Ricciardo's 2 wins. After the first 9 races, where each of the top teams had won 3 races each, I thought, yeah, on the ball. But that is the constructors. But let's now break it down into the Drivers' Championship, the fun one. So let's start off then in 20th position. The team I put at the bottom with the constructors, I thought they'd be miles off. Made sense that Brendan Hartley, unfortunately, would be last in the championship. If you can see, this is the sort of layout I'm going to do for each of the drivers. So the position, then the number next to them is how far off I got them. So Hartley finished 19th. So the -1 is that I got him 1 place lower than where he actually finished. And a difficult year for Brendan Hartley, being outscored by a Williams, despite the fact that Williams was so much worse than Toro Rosso over the year. A real difficult season for the Kiwi, and as we know, he won't be keeping his drive for next season. A miracle, if you ask me, that he stayed in F1 for all that time in the first place. Canada, for sure I thought he was out, and after that crash with Stroll on the first lap, yeah, I thought he was out. So, not a bad way to start off the predictions. Only a -1 for Brendan Hartley. I do love that guy, I do miss that guy, and I hope he can find a seat in a competitive series somewhere, but just not Formula 1. Let's go on to 19th then. Right, Pierre Gasly, got him 4 positions down, which doesn't look great, obviously, on paper, but there's ones that are much more crazy than 4 positions away, so get ready for those ones. But again, like I say, I thought Toro Rosso would be really, really bad this year, so it made sense to put their drivers in the bottom 2. Thought Gasly would outscore Hartley, and obviously that was correct, but I didn't expect a 4th place at all, especially in the second race. And probably after Bahrain, I thought, well, I've got them miles off. So 9th, and they finished 10th in the constructors, wasn't completely miles off, but Gasly finishing the season in 15th, a really solid year. Obviously, again, he'll be making the step up to Red Bull next year, so really looking forward to seeing him, because he was a driver that I think is fair to say was one of the drivers of the season. Probably not the driver of the season, but he put in some really solid performances, even on days where he got 11th and 12th. So Gasly, we'll talk about him a little bit later on in the advent calendar when we do his season review, but a really good year from Pierre Gasly. Oh my God. -9 on Kevin Magnussen. Oh dear. Finished 9th in the championship. I put him 18th. Again, this is more a casualty from the fact that I thought Haas would be nowhere this year. I thought, well, there's no way they're going to really make the jump up when the likes of McLaren are going to make that leap. I thought Renault, they were going to make that leap again, and Renault for sure did. Obviously, McLaren didn't, but I don't think anyone expected Haas to make that leap. I know in winter testing, again, I did these before winter testing, so in winter testing they look good. But even then, some question marks about Haas, so obviously I was really happy for my man Romain Grosjean, but Magnussen as well. I thought Grosjean would outscore him, mainly because of Magnussen's awful 2017. Again, Magnussen's someone that I think should be considered for driver of the season. Did so well. Fell off a little bit at the end. Can't lie, did fall off a little bit at the end, but a really good start to the season and mid-season for Kevin Magnussen. So yeah, -9 isn't great. Oh my God, we got someone right. Yes, we finally get a prediction right. On the driver's side of things, that is Marcus Ericsson. King Marcus of Ericsson, as he is known on the F1 Word Discord server. I'm surprised I got this right, actually. Marcus Ericsson, probably I went into the season thinking he's an awful driver and shouldn't deserve a seat. But I leave this year thinking I'm a little bit gutted he's going to be leaving, if I'm being totally honest with you. His best year in Formula 1, without a doubt, partnered with the most competitive car he's ever had in Formula 1. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one. I thought Alfa Romeo would make that jump, which they did, finishing 8th in this championship. Is brilliant for Sauber, and like I say, with that Alfa Romeo partnership, I thought that would create a special thing. But I think with Sauber, I thought, like which actually happened, I thought Charles Leclerc would be the one pushing that team forward, and I thought Ericsson will probably take a little bit of a backseat this season. So yeah, got that one right. Very happy with that. Now, somewhat surprisingly, I managed to guess my man, the one who I'm biased towards, Romain Grosjean. I managed to put him worse than he actually did, which, in a sense, makes me a little bit happy that he's done better than I thought he was going to do. But at the same time, that font doesn't look like it's a J in Grosjean's name, so that is a J, just to let you know. But at the same time, this is almost because I thought, again, that Haas wouldn't have a great year. -2, that's not too far off, and it's kind of respectable if I'm just getting him 1 or 2 positions off, but he definitely had the car to be much, much higher up. Ended up finishing behind Charles Leclerc, so those early doors for Haas, especially Romain Grosjean, all those mistakes, despite Marcus Ericsson crashing into the back of him. Oh dear, that was difficult times. That was a difficult times, and I'm glad I didn't quite have the the view numbers back then, because I'm sure I'd have been ripped into a little bit more. So I can take it nowadays. Now he's had a little bit of form the second half, but Grosjean, difficult year for him, and I hope next year he can do better. Charles Leclerc, I put in P15. Now, again, I put him down lower than I thought he was going to be, but at the same time, I thought, yes, he would outscore Marcus Ericsson. So at the moment, I've got all the team battles right in terms of Sauber and Toro Rosso. Haas I've got wrong, but of course, I'm going to chuck in a bit of bias there. But but I thought Charles Leclerc would have a brilliant year, and I made this evidently clear in my rationale while doing this video. And I think we've all been pleasantly surprised by Charles Leclerc, even myself. 15th I thought would be an absolute miracle for Sauber if Leclerc can pull that team up that much, but finishing 13th in his first year in a team that struggled to get any sort of points last year, 10-point finishes out of 21 races, no one saw that happening. And at the end of the year, he was comfortably best of the rest, and again, really deserves that step up next year to Ferrari. So 2 positions off for Charles Leclerc, yeah, I'll take that. Now, Sergei Sirotkin, I put him up 6 places, finished last in the championship, did Sirotkin. Again, Williams, I got the team battle right. As you can see, I put Sirotkin behind Stroll. So, again, something I actually got right. But this was more focused on, I thought Williams would be much better. That was the big surprise for me this year. It really was. I can look, you saw my Constructors' Championship. You saw McLaren and Ferrari, especially McLaren. They were miles up from where they were. And Ferrari, 4th, well, that was miles away from where they were. They weren't in the midfield. So you might think I'd go for them. But Williams, I really was shocked at, considering how far off they were from 9th as well. A terrible year. Sirotkin picked up 1 point, which wasn't on the road either, but it was still brilliant to see in the first time in F1 history that every single driver picks up a point. But yeah, not much to say about Sirotkin. That was a pretty dodgy prediction. Now, another team fight that I got wrong. Got Haas wrong, obviously. Got Force India wrong. I thought Sergio Perez would finish behind Esteban Ocon. And it wasn't really a prediction I was miles away from getting. Perez's sort of fluke podium in Azerbaijan almost got him that overall 8th place in the championship and just about outscored his teammate Esteban Ocon. But around, I'd even say 7th, all the way down to about 15th this year was so close. And if you tap on maybe 2 or 3 extra races, anyone could have been in that 7th place. So Perez finishing 8th, I underestimated him. But again, Force India at the beginning of the year, I thought I'd nailed this prediction. I really did thought I'd had this one slap bang on. But the second half, when they changed to Racing Point, a little bit more funds in that team just turned it up a notch and really did become a top 10 contender. If you remember in Australia, they both went out in Q2 and looked like they were going out in Q1. So Perez, sorry about that, mate, got you wrong. Now, we move on to the second driver, hey, that we have actually got correct, and that is Esteban Ocon. What really more can I say? I thought he'd outscore Sergio Perez. Didn't happen because of that podium. Arguably, if he didn't have so many retirements over this year, could have been higher than 12th. Had the car to do so, but I think we're all aware he should be in F1 next year. He really should. I don't think he'll have any issues coming back in 2020, but still, it's a massive pain for fans and for himself and for all teams on the grid that he wasn't a viable option. But Ocon, a solid 3rd year in Formula 1 now. Really looking forward to seeing him back on the grid because I love the man. I think we all love the man. He's such a likeable guy. Such a quick racer as well, man. Oh, it's a bit of a bummer, but we've got to deal with it. I'm very happy, thank you Esteban, that you gave me a second actual bang-on prediction. Now, this one's going to get people rattled. Lance Stroll, I put in 11th, 7 places above where he actually finished in P18. Again, this was more to do with Williams. I thought Stroll would be better than Sirotkin, which I was right. And I thought, well, they're not going to be getting podiums or anything like that, but if they can get some fluke results, maybe a 5th, if there's some carnage. So, like Stroll was able to do in Azerbaijan, I think he finished 7th or 8th. I think if they had a better car, obviously, they could have finished maybe 4th. Or even, I suppose, where I put them into constructors, fighting Perez for that podium. So, in theory, this wasn't miles off. And if you look at where I put Sirotkin, it's not miles off. But again, I think Stroll has improved this year. So I got that right, I think. And I think next year he will... Well, I think a lot of people will underestimate him next year at Force India. And he's going to be a real interesting one to place in my predictions next year. So keep an eye out for Lance Stroll, because I think a lot of people are really writing him off. But I think there is something special there. Right, top 10. Wow, oh dear, that was not nice to see. If you're listening and not watching, you wouldn't have seen that on screen. 10th place is Kimi Raikkonen. Oh, blimey, 7 places down from where he actually finished. Now again, there was some rationale behind this. And again, I've got the team battle right. I said that Vettel would finish in front of Raikkonen, so in a gist, I would like to think that's a good way of measuring how idiotic I am, how many inter-team battles I can get correct. So, we've only got 2 of them wrong so far. But I thought, well, again, like I said earlier, thought Ferrari would have a dodgy year. I really did, and I'm really happy that they proved me wrong. But at the same time, I thought, well, you look at Raikkonen, how he's been the last few years. He seems to be getting almost, I don't want to say sluggish, but a little bit more disinterested each year, a little bit more slower, less reactive, less crazy dive bombs and things like that. Seem to never happen with Kimi Raikkonen. And like I say, he did look disinterested outside and inside the car at some point. So I was loving it this year. Cannot deny. An absolutely brilliant year from Kimi Raikkonen. I think we can all agree with that as well. He's been brilliant. Not quite the levels of Sebastian Vettel, but you saw yesterday in my advent calendar video, I've been so impressed with my man, Kimi Raikkonen, this year. So impressed. And next year at Sauber, again, he's going to be a really interesting one to do predictions with, because he really looks fired up again, which is beautiful to see. It almost looks as if, well, like it was when he came back to Lotus, where all of a sudden, we have a Kimi Raikkonen who wants to win races again. And next year at Sauber, I think he'll be more feisty and fighty than ever. I really do. But again, with his almost disinterest that he'd shown the last couple of years, with Ferrari I thought would go backwards, it just made sense that I put him down in 10th place. And there's no way on earth I thought this year he was going to get a win. Even after the first few rounds where he looked better than Vettel. Even in qualifying, I think he out-qualified Vettel in Australia, in China. Could be wrong there, but in the first few rounds, he definitely looked the better of the two. And so, yeah, a little bit disappointed in myself that I've gone a bit rogue with Kimi Raikkonen's prediction. But at the same time, really happy to see that he actually did quite well this year. It's been a real nice surprise, and I hope next year he can continue that run of form. And I think up against Giovinazzi, that's going to be a really sort of nice blend into team, because I really rate Giovinazzi. I know a lot of people don't, but I think up against Raikkonen, a credible driver, a world champion, that's going to be a good comparison for him and for Raikkonen as well, to test if he's still got it against the youth of the likes of Giovinazzi. 9th, Nico Hulkenberg, only got him off by 2 places. Another inter-team battle, I got wrong, that's 3, okay. It's getting a little bit touch and go, but Hulkenberg, I really love. I really do love Nico, and back in the day, was gutted. He never got his move through to Lotus. That looks so certain. But once again this year, he has looked brilliant at Renault, and Renault is actually a team that I got fairly close with my predictions. I said they'd be 5th in the Constructors, and I think I've put them 9th, as you can see. Sainz ended up finishing 8th, and you'll see where I put Sainz in a second. But I didn't get them too far off, and in the inter-team battle, I was surprised at Carlos Sainz this year. I really was. He was one of my favourites last year, and the last couple of years I really wanted him to get that big move somewhere, and I love the fact he was moving to Renault. And in pre-season, if you guys were around that sort of time, you would have known I was really looking forward to seeing him fighting at the front. I really was. And I even predicted, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I predicted a fluke win for Sainz at some point during the season. You know, I thought that maybe we'll have a big crazy carnage. And again, if you would have seen my predictions, a lot of my focus around this year was that over the winter and in the course of last season, Renault all year long were saying that they're going to have the best engine next year. And it's another, well, a lie, it turned out, that I believed in the winter. And I think that was one of the big things I thought this year, is that we'd have our top 5 teams fighting it out. I really did believe that. We ended up with 3, obviously, and Renault were just outside of that, best of the rest. But nowhere near fighting for a win. Okay, they maybe could have fought for a couple of podiums here or there. I think their best finish was a 5th from Nico Hulkenberg in Germany, so never that close to getting a podium. But again, if they would have had a carnage race, they could have been the team that really took the spoils in Azerbaijan. It was just the straight line speed of the Force India is why Perez got it. So yeah, they could have been there. But I really did believe that Renault engine in particular, would be great. But like I said, not miles off Nico Hulkenberg, and more the fact that I rated Sainz going into this season a little bit more. I thought, you know, Hulkenberg's been brilliant, but maybe with that little bit of youth of Sainz, he'll be able to better him. But no, Hulkenberg, for me, again, another one I'd really put forward for driver of the year. And up against Daniel Ricciardo next year as his teammate, I think that is going to be a lot closer. I really do, and I know this year I put Sainz in front of Hulkenberg, but again, I've been so impressed with Hulkenberg this year. I think this has probably been one of his biggest challenges teammates-wise. Yeah, he's really maturing into a brilliant driver, and I think up against Ricciardo, like I say, that's going to be a real interesting one to watch next season. Right, moving on to 8th place, we have Carlos Sainz. Hey! So, I put one driver in 9th, one driver in 8th. They actually finished 7th and 10th, so not that miles off. Not miles off. Sainz up at 2 positions in front, which, again, isn't miles off, is it? And if you look at some of my predictions, it's fairly respectable just getting him off by 2 places. Again, a little bit disappointed with Sainz this year. He's almost fluked that 10th place at the end with a brilliant result in the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi, getting that 6th place. But apart from that, I really struggled to think of a real standout drive for Carlos Sainz. I remember in Azerbaijan, really early on in the year, he had a great fight with the 2 Red Bulls and his teammate Nico Hulkenberg. But apart from that, can't really remember a lot from Carlos Sainz this year. But on the quiet, he's actually been really consistent. I think he's been out-qualified by his teammate. He lost the qualifying battle with Nico Hulkenberg. But if you actually look at his points finishes this year, he's had, yes, I think 3 or 4 less retirements than Nico Hulkenberg, and that is a big factor in, well, showing not only how good Renault are, but how good Hulkenberg this year was indeed, considering he finished so far in front of his teammate. If you look at sort of the points almost, exchange rate almost between the top teams and the midfield, I think there's about 20 points difference between Sainz and Hulkenberg. So he was comfortably beaten by Hulkenberg, but still finishing in the top 10 is a very respectable job from Carlos Sainz. Not quite what he was able to show from Toro Rosso last year. I think that's very fair to say. And as well, I think the Sainz prediction was almost going off the last few races of last season, where he did move to Renault and straight away looked really quick and looked better than Hulkenberg at the end of that year. And I thought, well, obviously if there's going to be a car that's somewhat built around him over the winter, have more time to integrate himself into the team, of course he's going to be there. There's no way that Hulkenberg's going to beat him. But of course, like I say, over the course of the season, Hulkenberg did prove to be the better. And Sainz, I would argue this is probably his worst year in Formula 1. Probably not his biggest test in Formula 1 ever. I think that still goes to his fights with Max Verstappen. That was a big time in his career. But still performed very well against Max Verstappen. And I think that's something that shouldn't be forgotten. Is that next year this guy's going to McLaren and will be a team leader for the first time almost. I know he was a team leader almost at Toro Rosso. A very funny and sticky situation going on there. But I think, difficult year, I think he'll be able to bounce back, and I think he's a great fit for McLaren at their sort of current state. Right then, moving on to who I thought would be best of the rest, we have Valtteri Bottas, 2 places down, 7th. I mean, that's crazy that I put him in 7th. A team that finished, well, top in the drivers, won the constructors, and I was only 2 places off. Yeah, I mean, but going into this season, I don't want to say I was a Bottas hater as such, but seeing how much almost he struggled last year, I thought, you know what, if McLaren and Red Bull were going to be showing up this year, even Ferrari, you know, I thought, well, if all these teams are going to be fighting for wins, does Bottas have that slight edge to be able to put himself in a championship fight? And early doors into the season, I was wrong, wasn't I? He really looked like he could win races. Looked like he was going to be in this championship fight. But, the racing gods, they knew. They knew that my prediction, I had to get some predictions almost right. So they gave me a favour. They gave me a favour. And although this season, I've defended a lot from Bottas, when I've come back and seen that I put him in 7th in the championship, I thought, well, why was I defending him? He's actually done better than I thought he was going to do. So, a difficult year from Valtteri. Like I just said, could have won arguably 4 races this year. Arguably 5 if you want to chuck in Germany. So, a real difficult year from Valtteri Bottas. And a lot of people saying that he needs to go away in the winter, rethink, come back. And he's even said it's his worst year in Formula 1. Again, I think he's not been awful this year. And I know a lot of people disagree with that. And I'll still defend him. I still will, because he has had so much bad luck this year. So much bad luck. And I know at the end of the year he wasn't great. And that sticks in our mind a lot. But I'd say up to Germany, where they gave him those team orders, it was one of the best drivers of the year. And I know a lot of people disagree with that. And it's something that you're never going to change my mind on, because I truly do believe that Valtteri Bottas could have been in this World Championship had luck gone his way early doors. But this is Formula 1. He deserved to be 5th at the end of the year. Arguably 6th. Because Daniel Ricciardo had even worse luck than Valtteri. So, it's a very difficult one. It's a very difficult one. And at the end of the day, he was only 4 points off 3rd. So, although I'm only 2 positions off with this prediction, it was almost 4. So, it was so close at the top. But, if you look at the gap between him and Hamilton, that's more than luck. And again, I did get the team fight right. Because I still 100% agree that Hamilton is better than Bottas. I do believe that. And I think as well, there is an argument that Nico Rosberg is better than Valtteri Bottas. You know, you see how close Rosberg was to Hamilton. You know, times are different. Arguably, Hamilton's now in his prime. But yeah, Bottas, a difficult year. Now, this is an interesting one. 6th, I put Sebastian Vettel. Again, more because I thought Ferrari themselves wouldn't be great. Obviously, I got the team battle right. Vettel in front of Raikkonen. So, obviously, there's only one more team battle I've got to predict. I've only got 3 of those wrong so far. So, look, Vettel, I've put him 4 positions lower, which even's crazy to say that he got 2nd in the championship this year, because many people would agree, if you look at it on paper, 2nd in the championship, well, he's got to be one of the drivers of the year, surely. But no, I think we all know that, again, people disagree with this, but I think people's memory is a little bit phasey on this. Phasey, that's not the word, but we'll go with it. The beginning of the year, maybe not the first couple of rounds, but I'd say from Azerbaijan onwards, up till maybe even Japan, Ferrari had the best car. They really did, and people don't believe us when we say this, but Ferrari were the best car for the majority of this season. I know race to race, it's very different, and track to track, different aspects of the car work and don't work. So I know you can't really put a physical number on it unless a team is miles in front. But I think it's fair to say that for the majority of races this year, Ferrari had the best car. Something which I certainly didn't predict, did I? But Vettel did throw it away this year. Could have been world champion. Too many mistakes, but we all know about this. We've all heard this. I don't really want to talk too much about Ferrari, because I've got them so wrong this year. It's a bit of a joke. You know, even Williams, that's fair enough. But Ferrari, I have got them quite far off, and I've got to put my hands up to that, which is painful to do. It's painful to do, and I knew about halfway through even after the first race, After the very first race of the year, I knew I'd got Ferrari miles off. Absolutely miles off. So, yeah, a difficult one. Like I say, in the winter, my rationale, Ferrari for me, I thought, no, they won't be fighting for the World Championship. I did believe Red Bull, Mercedes would be the top two. Ferrari, I think probably with McLaren coming back, I thought, well, let's put McLaren just in front, mix that one up a little bit. Because predictions, you've got to guess a little bit. There is a lot of guesswork that goes into it. And Ferrari, I suppose, were my rogue sort of guess. But not a million miles off. But obviously, I did sort of save myself by not doing points. So I could very easily say, well, I put Vettel 6, but he's only, 4 points off. So, yeah, it's a very strange one. And next year, he's going to have a hell of a task, Sebastian Vettel. So again, a really interesting story for next year. Right, top 5. In 5th, we put... Okay. Do we need to talk about this? Do we need plus 11 places? I put him 11 places higher. Or, it's not... It looks nice. It looks nice, the green and the orange. It looks very nice on screen. But no, and for audio listeners, you don't have a clue once again, so sorry. But Stoffel Vandoorne, I put in P5. Again, this is linked to the fact that I put McLaren in 3rd in the Constructors. Won the team battle, so I got that right. So yay for me. But no, it's really hard. It's really hard. Vandoorne, of course I believe the stories that McLaren were going to be better. But at the same time, I thought McLaren had a really strong lineup. I thought, yes, Alonso is one of the best drivers on the grid. And I even thought, Vandoorne's not that far off. He's only in his 2nd year, so give him a little bit more time to grow. Maybe then he can beat Alonso. But he's not that far off. But my God, what an awful year this guy had. Really didn't expect him to have an awful year that he actually had. I think he got 3 points finishes in the first 4 races. Then didn't score again till Mexico. I mean, yes, a lot of it to do with the car. McLaren started off the year really well, faded off for the rest of the year. And actually, in Mexico, Brazil and Abu Dhabi, Vandoorne could be argued as driver of the day. Had a brilliant end to his season. But for the rest of the year, was god-awful. Absolute doggy driving, in a way. The car was a dog, but it was doggy driving as well. Alonso was in the top 10 in the championship for most of the year. Whereas Vandoorne, I think, maybe was in it for a couple of races at the beginning of the year, then plummeted right down to the bottom. So, a real difficult year from Stoffel, a guy that, once again, last year, I really rated. Thought, give him a little bit more time to get used to Formula 1, and he'll smash it. And unfortunately, wasn't quite able to do that for most of this season. And we'll move over to Formula E next year. Something, again, I don't want to bore you with Formula E, but it's something I'm looking forward to. And I think it's only next week. Stoffel Vandoorne will be doing his first race for Formula E. I think that'll be a really interesting story to watch. But McLaren, as a team, nowhere near where I thought, which is such a huge disappointment, considering that things were going their way over the winter. Before we got to testing, they were going their way. And with Honda gone, with arguably the best chassis, as they boasted last year, it looks so bright. So, unfortunately, I've been a casualty of the media. And I think that's something I have learned this year, is that you can't believe everything they say. And I think next year, my predictions, especially learning a lot after this year, will be a lot closer. Alright, 4th place. Okay, we got another correct answer. That's not supposed to happen. We're not supposed to get correct answers over here. So, the fact that we've got 3 drivers correct out of 20... Okay, that's pretty dodgy. But at the same time, I'm pretty proud. Because I thought I'd get 0 right. So, we're doing something correct. But Max Verstappen then. At the beginning of the year, I thought there's no way he's getting 4th. But again, my rationale behind the fact that I thought Red Bull would have the best car. But at the same time, I thought Verstappen finished 4th. Again, was the fact that I thought there'd be multiple teams in the fight for the win. And I thought that Verstappen's lack of experience in F1 would hurt him a little bit. And at the beginning of the year, yeah, it did, didn't it? It did really hurt him. But again, a real strong contender for driver of the year, if you count out maybe those first 7 races. I think he would have been 2nd in the championship if you Take the championship results from after the summer break. A brilliant season he has had overall. Again, except those first 7 races. But even then, he was able to pick up a podium in races where he was still making little mistakes. So, Verstappen again next year. A lot of talk about him maybe fighting for the World Championship. I'm going to have to underestimate Honda again. I don't think they're close enough to a championship. But if you look at where I put them this year, well, they very well could be. So never count anything out in Formula 1. I did get the team battle wrong in Red Bull. Again, I don't... It's painful that I've got this team battle wrong. Mainly because I don't think I would have got it wrong if not for all the DNFs Daniel Ricciardo had. I don't think I would have got it wrong. I think if you think of races like the USA, Ricciardo really would have been in the mix for the win. Mexico would have been in the race for the win. So it feels almost as if I've got this prediction wrong that I've put Max in 4th, despite the fact that it's bang on. Because everything that I used in my head to make this decision was almost the complete opposite reason for Max being here. Because I thought Red Bull would be the fastest car, and I thought that he'd be the worst out of the 2 drivers in the team. But instead it's ended up that with Ricciardo's reliability and Max's second half of the season, the car wasn't the best on the grid, and Max was the better of the 2. So it's a bit of a shock that I've got this one correct. But Max this year, I've said it all year long now, I think he's in my top 3 drivers on the grid comfortably. And with Alonso going out, I think maybe comfortably in my top 2 drivers on the grid. I really think he's that good. I'm 99% sure now he'll be a world champion, and 100% sure next year I won't be getting his prediction, especially into team, wrong. But then Gasly could really surprise a lot of people. But Max, a brilliant year, and next year I'm really looking forward to seeing him 3rd. That would have been nice to see, wouldn't it? In his last year of Formula 1, which again I didn't predict to be his last year in Formula 1. I thought he'd go for one more. I really did, because I thought McLaren would be so good, because I thought he'd be on that podium once again. Fernando Alonso, 3rd place. That would be so brilliant, wouldn't it? That would be... it's hard to think of. You know, it's really... He's finished 11th, which in itself is a miracle, considering how awful that McLaren car was. Won the team fight, got that right. Put Alonso in front, so there's something I got right. I think did I get 6 or 7 of the team battles right? So I'll take that. I'll take that. That's not an awful job. But is there really a lot to say? You know, I thought that McLaren would be much better. They weren't. I thought Alonso would still be there, which he was. And after Australia, maybe I didn't think he'd get 3rd in the championship, but now we can fight. And I thought, yes, Fernando. Maybe my prediction's not that bad. Next race, Gasly says, now we can fight. And I'm thinking, whoa, hold the phone, Pierre, mate. This isn't in the script for my predictions, man. This isn't in the script. You're not supposed to be getting points. Alonso's not supposed to be getting mugged off like that. No. But Pierre was right. They could fight. McLaren couldn't fight. So, yes, it's a painful one. I've spoke a lot about McLaren today, and Alonso, part of me thinks he'll be back, but part of me also thinks I can see him trying a lot of other series now. I really can. Obviously doing Indy again next year, finishing off WEC. Wouldn't surprise me to ever see him in NASCAR. You know, he's done a test this week, swapping cars with Jimmy Johnson, I believe it was. So, wouldn't surprise me if we eventually saw him there. And of course, 100% sure I am now that he'll be in Formula E. I am adamant that Fernando Alonso will eventually make it to Formula E, because I think he can comfortably win it if he gets in the right seat. And I think he wants to become this complete driver where he wins so many series. And I think he will like the idea of being a leading figure in the likes of Formula E. And I think he can win multiple titles, which is something still that no driver has done. Every driver that's won Formula E has only won one World Championship. So I think that's a real nice mix for Fernando, and something that he will look to pursue next year. Let's move on then to P2, because my voice is, for some reason, getting a little bit strange today, dying a little bit, but we'll keep plugging on. And in 2nd place, we have Lewis Hamilton, 1 position off, which again looks a little bit disrespectful considering he finished this season 80 points in front of Sebastian Vettel. 99%, 88 points was it? I mean, yeah, a comfortable championship win from Lewis Hamilton. Again, got the team battle right, so that's something. And I thought he'd be up there. I really did think he'd be up there. The main reason I didn't think he'd win is because I thought Red Bull would be that good. You know, I thought Red Bull were back this year, and I thought, well, Hamilton will drag this Mercedes up the grid. You know, probably that's why I put the gap with Bottas as it was, because I thought Hamilton has this something special that he's just going to be able to extract a little bit more out of the car, like I thought with Fernando Alonso and Sebastian Vettel. I thought they'll have that little edge over their teammate to be able to drag that car up. But Hamilton P2, again, it seems like a real disrespect that I've put him in P2, considering the year he's had. Again, the first couple of races weren't brilliant, even though he was on the podium for almost all of those races, so is it that bad really? But the rest of the season, almost flawless. Many times this year I've said he's driver of the year, and I think, yeah, for me, out of all the drivers I've said, I probably would give Hamilton driver of the year. And if you want to see the Planet F1 nominees, you can head over to the F1 Word channel. That will be linked in the description. All week, Sean on the F1 Word will be doing all sorts of top 10s with myself and Jonty. So if you're interested in that, you can head over there to see all sorts of Formula 1 top 10s. But no, I feel a little bit disappointed, like I said, that I put Hamilton in P2. And you've probably worked out who I've put in P1. Someone who almost was nowhere near P1 this year. But after the first few rounds, I thought I'd nailed it. I thought, you know what? This guy, he's won in Monaco. He's won in China. In China, a car which many people say, and generally is, an engine-based track. But Red Bull was smashing it so early on, and so was this man, Daniel Ricciardo. I mean, I can't deny. I thought I might have this one right. I thought, especially over the winter, I thought I've nailed this. I've nailed this, I really have. And again, like I spoke when I was talking about Max, if he hadn't had so many retirements, this could look so different. It really could look so different. But those retirements really did cost him this year. There was barely any mistakes from Daniel. And you see in that first half of the year almost, he was third in the championship, second in the championship, and it looked like he could do it. At least put up a real good fight. But of course, as we know, Red Bull have let him down massively. And Red Bull blame it on the engines, but we found out afterwards that half the time it wasn't an engine issue, it was something Red Bull's end. And that is why I think he's made the sensible decision of moving on to Renault. I do believe that. And again, this is a topic I want to cover in a completely separate video over the winter. But it's something that I feel really strongly about, that he's made the right move. I do feel really strongly about it. It doesn't look the best on paper at the moment. It really doesn't. And probably for the next few years, he won't be fighting for the championship. But it reminds me very much of when Lewis Hamilton left McLaren. It really does. McLaren at the time were, well, almost the best car at the end of 2012. Hamilton then left. McLaren have slipped back, and look where they are now. And this really rings true of a similar sort of story. I really do believe that. And I think Daniel, with one of the most likeable guys in Formula 1 of all time, has gone through such pain this year. And I mean, you can see where I've put him in the championship. So I was miles off. I think everyone in their predictions was miles off as well, because finishing 6th, no. After the start of this year, he did not deserve that whatsoever. I think 8 DNFs. And that's not even including the issues he had in qualifying with retirements. Yeah, such a difficult year for the Aussie. Right move to move on. But again, got that prediction wrong. Got that team battle wrong. So yeah, but that is my predictions. That is my reaction. Was that fun? If anything, I suppose I've made myself look like a bit of a mug, to be honest. Got many of those wrong. I think I got quite a few of the teams right. I think I got 3 or 4 of the teams right, which, again, less than 50%. So is that any good? Probably not. But 3 drivers directly correct. I think quite a few drivers, I've only got 1 or 2 positions off. But I've got Ericsson, Ocon and Verstappen in correct positions. I mean, yeah. It's a bit of a difficult one, and I know I do want to point out as well, that my predictions I did after winter testing were actually a lot closer to the actual ones, but they're not as fun because we had a bit of data. So next year, once again, I'm going to be making the stupid mistake of doing it before winter testing, because I think it's funny to look back and to see how wrong I just was. And also to be surprised that drivers like Grosjean, I thought would actually do worse than they actually did. So I think that was a lot of fun, and maybe next year as well I'd like to get some involvement from you guys maybe, so we'll have a look into that. But that was today's episode of Let's Talk F1, and for the next few weeks, obviously F1 news is going to be a little bit on the quiet, so there will be more of these sort of a little bit different videos, but that is what we're going to do for the moment. Next week, something I have planned, so if you stayed around this long, you're in for almost, I want to call it a treat, but I'm sure some of you won't agree with that. Formula E week I am doing next week, so every single day I'll be doing a Formula E videos. There will be Formula 1 videos coming out as well, so don't worry, they will still be there. But in the build-up to the first Formula E race of the season, it will be Formula E week, a Formula E video every single day. So if you are interested, or as I always say, if you're not interested, give it a go. You know, just pick a random Formula E video that you think, oh, maybe that's interesting. Oh, it's 5 minutes. I'll give it a go. Even the top 5, I think they're about 5 minutes long. Just give it a bash and see how you feel, because it really is going to be something special next year. And it is a great feeling when you get on the hype train early. You board that train, you get a nice comfy seat on the hype train. They might move you up to first class. It's beautiful. So if you're interested in that whatsoever, please head over there. My voice is absolutely dying, but guys, before I go, thank you for watching as always. I know it's a very strange time, Formula 1 in the winter, but I'm loving it. And you guys, most of you are still about as well. So thank you for sticking with me as always, and I'll see you in the next one.